Let's talk about some of the biggest pivots that you potentially had to make throughout this journey.
Switching from being an engineering major to psychology, well, that is actually the pivot that got me into dentistry. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people go through that moment like, all right, let's really sit down and figure out what we're doing here.
One or two bad decisions, not even say bad decisions, just one or two decisions could easily pivot that thing where it's just like, I ain't going to school no more. For whatever reason, right? Family, I could have been in a certain relationship or something like that and it turned into something. It's so easy for things to switch on you.
When I was in Chicago, I actually got into Tufts. I think the Tufts semester started in July. I got into this accident, and the accident made it so that I was unable to start dental school on time.
Welcome to another episode of the Never Seen It Podcast. I'm DL Stevens, along with me is Terrell Friday, Devontae Johnson, Tyler Brown. Welcome back. So on today's episode, fellas, I wanted to kind of ask, I understand we go through a lot of crossroads in life, definitely a lot of crossroads in dentistry. Let's talk about some of the biggest pivots that you potentially had to make throughout this journey, whether it's recent or earlier in life. Let's go and dive into it.
It's crazy, man. I mean, I guess it's hard to decipher certain ones just because like every day we obviously make decisions that can steer where we're going. I think some big ones are obviously crucial things like where you go to school, things of that nature, what job you choose, where you decide to live. I think one of the biggest things or decisions I had to make where I felt like I had to make a big pivot was switching from being an engineering major, aerospace engineering, to psychology, not necessarily knowing what the vision was, but understand I felt like that would allow me to explore a lot of avenues to be able to implement that into no matter what I did. So I think just switching to that is actually, well, that is actually the pivot that got me into dentistry, having to do a direct to studies project on, kind of figuring out what am I doing here? You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people go through that moment like, all right, let's really sit down and figure out what we're doing here. And using that as a kind of like a capsule to use what I had to do in terms of finishing my degree, doing the things like that, to study something that I was kind of interested in, and that was dentistry. So I wanted to look at why people were afraid of the dentist, and it ended up being, let's talk to some dentists and kind of get their anecdotal experience with that, to them saying, oh man, like you pretty good with patients. Like, and I'm not even thinking about the patient. I'm just trying to get this grade, right? So they're like, oh, you pretty good with patients. You got a pretty good bedside manner. I'm like, don't know what that means, but cool, thank you. You know what I'm saying? That means I'm a people person, I guess, right? To then diving into a little bit more, getting randomly introduced to a great mentor that actually, saw more in me or saw more in my potential to be a dentist than I thought, or even had kind of thought of on my own, and then continuing just down that pathway, which obviously led to more decisions being made. But I think without that kind of realization of sitting down and saying, like, I don't necessarily want to, as much as I'm interested in engineering as seemingly a hobby, I don't think it's something that I want to sit down and like sit in front of a computer 8 hours a day or work on these projects where I might be locked in a lab for this amount of time and not be able to communicate, speak to people, and really have to kind of kill a big portion of who I felt like I am to do one thing that I feel like is just an interest of mine. And yeah, I think that was probably like the biggest first pivot for me that steered in terms of like my career for sure. I can get into some more stuff, but I'd rather, I want to hear what y'all got to say about it first.
So for like Tyler, I know you went through a few things on your journey prior to getting into dental school. Kind of talk about that, and if that made you kind of decide maybe I'll kind of go left or go right, or how did you get back on that straight and narrow because of what you went through?
Sure. So, funny story is, I'm sure I still would have been here at this table, right? We always gonna be boys, but I was actually supposed to be in the grade or the class before. But basically, after I graduated, I did a internship year in Chicago. And when I was in Chicago, I actually got into Tufts. And I was headed up, I was excited, everything was gonna go great. I think the Tufts semester started in July, and it was May. And basically I got into this accident, right? And the accident made it so that I was unable to start dental school on time. So I'm going through it. I'm upset. I'm, all the emotions on top of being extremely injured, right? But with that being said, and this is why I always have a deep admiration for Tufts and specifically Dr. Holloway and Dr. Cashberg. They presented an opportunity for me to where I could go and get a master's program while I healed up. And that's where I met Terrell. And that is why I'm in the class with you all, or I was in the class with you all to this day. And so, even with that, I think from going from such a high point in my life, keep in mind, everybody's sending me congratulations. I put the Instagram posts, I'm in dental school, whatever it may be, to my ego being so destroyed because now, outside of being injured, it was an ego bruise to now say, hey, y'all, I'm actually not going to dental school this year, but it's going to be one more year, whatever it may be. I think that was one of the most humbling, it was the most humbling experience of my life, right? But I'm glad I went through it, because of course, with y'all, but also it prepared me for the constant humbling that dental school would be, right? And for anybody out there who hasn't gone through dental school before, if you're not being humbled by dental school, I don't even know if you're doing it right. Like, you have to put yourself out there. It's going to be tough. You have to take these chances, and you want to be humbled. You want to be challenged. So yeah, of course, learning opportunity. But yeah, I'm definitely just grateful to have gone through it, because who knows where I would have been.
It's good. For me, I think the pivot was, I'll tell you from a clinical approach. So when I first got into dental school, I thought that I wanted to be a pediatric dentist. And that's mainly because of how dentistry was introduced to me. So my mom, she works in craniofacial at Children's Health Care of Atlanta. So that's patients with like cleft palate, cleft lip, things like that. But they have a comprehensive unit of people. So it's pediatric dentists, orthodontists, plastic surgeons, speech pathologists, counselors, nurses, right? So the way I got introduced to dentistry was just this comprehensive unit of people. If the patients or the kids are dealing with issues and they're not as compliant, you could take them to the OR. So it was just like a good mixture. The doctors that worked there also had their own private practices, right? So they had the opportunity to be involved with the hospital as well as have your own practice. And they were also doing well financially. I was just looking at the whole picture and I was like, man, this is dope to be able to still be on the hospital side, but have your own practice. So I thought I was going to do that. And then when I got to school, man, peds was just too simple. You know what I mean? The dentistry was just too simple. You know what I mean? Like, I just felt like it wasn't challenging. Outside of the patient management portion, which is like if the kid gonna open their mouth today or they not. You know what I mean? I think that was one part of it, but I feel like the dentistry just wasn't enough, you know what I'm saying, for me to just feel fulfilled. And I think that's an extremely important part of the job, is that you got to be fulfilled. If you're going to commit to like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, the dentistry part needs to be fulfilling at some capacity. And P's didn't really do it for me. So I was just like, you know what, I'm going to stay general. So yeah, that was one of my things that I felt like I had to make a pivot on. I think a lot of people kind of make those decisions too, sometimes prematurely, where it's just like you might have been exposed to something and you thought you wanted to do this, and then once you get into dental school and you go through those rotations, you realize it's not exactly what you thought it was. And then from there, you kind of make a decision like, all right, I'm going to just do something else.
I would say for me, mine was more so thinking I don't want to take a step back. So as we all know, Dr. Holloway is, crucial in our journey. So I went up to Tufts for a symposium back in May, I think 15 or 16 or something like that. And, I already knew I wanted to be a dentist since I was 7, 8 years old. And I was like, okay, well, eventually it's going to happen. Granted, the first year I didn't get in. I was in the second cycle at this point. So, okay, if you listen to me, anything that you do, if you listen to me, I promise you'll get in dental school. First thing I want you to do is go get a master's program. And for me, she was saying, I think it's best if you go to Mississippi College. Those of you all who know me know I was born in Mississippi. Mississippi College is maybe like 45 minutes to an hour away from my hometown. I love my hometown. I love where I'm from. But just going back to Mississippi just feels like I'm going in the wrong direction. So my pivot was, I don't want to do this. I know I want to be a dentist. I know I work hard. I know it'll eventually work for me. Not to mention at the time, I'm kind of living somewhat of a luxury lifestyle for someone who's 22, 23 at the time. I work for Delta Airlines. I can fly.
Having a ball.
I'm going to Thailand next week. I don't want to go back to Mississippi for 5 days a week. So for me, my thing was just feeling like I'm taking 2 or 3 steps back to eventually go forward. In hindsight, I'm very grateful that I did. But just knowing that Mississippi is one of the poorer states, also one of the more obese states, I didn't want to kind of get sucked into that wormhole, knowing that I was trying to get into dental school. But looking back at them, I'm very grateful that I did. And here we are. So, yeah.
I think it's very interesting just having this conversation because you have the aspect of pivots that kind of are those crossroads. And then you have the pivots that are more of a roadblock, right? So sometimes we get forced into making those decisions, right? Like Tyler, out of our 4 pivots, so to speak, like us 3 having to choose our direction or what, how we wanted to go about it, but you were kind of forced into your situation or how to do that. So I just want to kind of like get a little bit more perspective of like how you had to handle it. I know you said it was humbling, but like how do you proceed to, continue to go forward or like continue to gain the motivation or like what do you do when you have kind of like that waiting period, right? Like how do you go about that?
I mean, it was more so community, man. I mean, you being my roommate, man. We had a great time. No, I mean, honestly.
Miami was fun.
Yeah, we had a great time. We were in Miami. And that's the thing, right? Yeah. It was like my ego was bruised. I landed in Miami today.
Hello.
Okay.
That's a soft landing.
Soft landing. And we lived on like the water. Like
you could have went to Mississippi.
Right. But once again, man, I think that, especially anybody who is kind of in that weird middle ground of like trying to get into dental school or whatever it may be, look at these master programs, right? Because it gives you the opportunity to be around similar-minded people and you all are all aiming for the same goal. And I think that alone really helped me. And it's like that lesson, I feel like growing up, everybody will tell you, you are who you hang around or whatever. You are the top 5 people in your life that you hang around the most or whatever it may be. It's true, I just happened to be around with this guy. We had a roommate, Stefano. Shout out to Stefano. And a couple of others that were really great. So really that was pretty much it, man. I would like to say it was really hard. Man, I had a blast. It was great. It was good.
I mean, just to follow up on that, do you feel like you have a pivot where you had to make a choice instead of?
For sure. Even just leaving my patients, leaving the team I had. I worked at this place up in Tequila, Georgia, and everything was great. Like I'm not gonna lie, it was just a really far commute, and like I said, also presented a better opportunity. And for my own growth, I said, okay, I'm gonna have to leave. So, but yeah, that was pretty much it, man.
I'm gonna speak on something too. So you just draw the thought of just speaking on that waiting period of like waiting, like knowing that you're pursuing this dream of dental school, right? But then that waiting period before you get in, right? So for us, we got blessed with a master's. We did a master's. That kind of took us some time. That was like a year. But it was like a year or so before that master's where you just floating. And it's so easy to just, man, I'm back in Atlanta. So I ain't been back in Atlanta living as an adult. So you come back, you 22, 23,
energy,
living in Atlanta.
Sure.
You got to get a job or something. I'm working at Nordstrom. Don't know what I'm doing with my money. You just outside. Yeah. You outside. You navigating everything.
Yep.
And it's just like, man, 1 or 2 bad decisions. Not even say bad decisions. Just 1 or 2 decisions could easily pivot that thing where it's just like, I ain't going to school no more. For whatever reason, right? Family, like I could have been in a certain relationship or something like that and it turned into something. It's so easy for things to switch on you. So I think just being able to, it's a testament to all of us of like, all right, even that downtime, sticking to the course because it's a lot of people who just wasn't as fortunate. And we were able to kind of navigate through all that to get us to that point.
So are you saying that granted, I recommend a master's, but say somebody doesn't want to do the master's, like what would you tell them? Hey, you just need to lock in. You don't need to, like, how can they stay on that?
You got to know yourself. You got to know yourself. You know what I'm saying? Certain level of discipline. Assume that you're not disciplined, though.
I always expect the worst.
Assume that you can't do it. And if you can't do it,
you need help.
If you can't do it, you should go ahead and go masters for the downtime.
They say the idle mind is the devil's play.
For sure. Telling you, man. Sure. You just gonna be kicking it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
We got lucky. You know, granted, we are all disciplined men, so because of it, you know, we are able to live the life that we prayed for.
Sure.
But I got another one for you all. Have there ever been any moments of crossroads with finances in terms of, okay, let's say, I can just give you an example for myself. So I worked, you all know I work. There was a point in time I was working 7 days a week. And then also as I transitioned over, I was traveling, kind of similar to you, traveling out of state, me and Devontae. Really, all of us was traveling to work. So going from point A of having X amount of dollars that you know is coming in every 2 weeks to eventually, like I said, when me and Devontae open up our spot, that's coming to a halt because now we have to put the blinders on to get this business to grow. Have you all ever had to run into any situations like that where it's like, okay, I'm going to stop receiving what I once was receiving in hopes of something better down the line?
I mean, I would say so. I think even just, I mean, and this is testament to like y'all going through the process of ownership, seeing other people do it. It's like, it takes money. It takes capital, right? So even just a frivolous spending, just because you can, doesn't mean you should, right? So I've had to, and I'm not gonna lie, like, that's one thing I just love to do. Like, impulse buying is just one thing I love to do. You know what I'm saying?
Like Lays.
I'm just looking, I'm looking at something like, oh, I could do it. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard, bro, because like, you work 10 years, you go to school for 10 years basically to get to this degree, to be able to have the ability to do X. And now you have the opportunity to do X and you're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do I push the button or not? So it's, you know, my first year, I gave myself that year to just be able to push the button, easy button. You know what I'm saying? Easy button. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, but this is like, it kind of goes back to the old conversation we had. Like, I had to put guardrails on my spending. So like, automatic deposits into certain accounts, I can't I gotta go to the bank to go touch little things like that where I'm just like, I'm gonna be straight. But this extra stuff, like, when it has no aim right now, you know what I mean? And it was crazy because I had a set date of doing it. And it was like 4 months before the set date, I looked at myself in the mirror and said, this has to stop. Yeah. This has to end. Like, it's got to end. It's not sustainable, right? And I don't want to get too comfortable in that understanding of like other things that I want to do. Like, if I want to own a practice, cool. If you want to buy a house, you need these things to kind of, you just got to build that callus of like, all right, even if you have the money, spend it to yourself. Like, put the however much you planned on paying for a mortgage into an account. Like, pay yourself so that you have an emergency fund for that later. Or you have, all right, I can buy it in cash instead of financing and save myself 5, 10, 20,000, depending on what you're buying. So it's like, it's these little things where, and I think growth comes with that, just maturity, interest, like wanting certain things I didn't want or now, or wanting things back then that, you know, I have no interest in now. But it's definitely something where I had to kind of force myself to say, hey, look, this is enough. And it allows me more freedom now. Looking back at it, it was a great decision because it allows me more freedom to make those decisions with a clear mind of saying, you know, I could do this, I could do that.
And see, so I feel like even like in my current situation, like I'm working 6 days a week, but I think that because, and I mean, I'm calling it what it is, the fear of not being able to have, right? It's the golden handcuffs. We always hear about them, right? You don't want to quit your job because you're making good money. You don't want to take that risk, right? And it's like, I'm in that right now where I'm just thinking about that paycheck just not coming in. And it's not as if I haven't saved. It's not as if I haven't invested. So the money's there, but still that cash flow is just like on my neck. Like, okay, you want to make sure you're just coming in. It's coming in. You got things to pay for. You know, a house on the way. Not a kid yet, but you know, it's right on the way. You know, just in real life. And so, seeing y'all do it, seeing a couple of our other boys doing it, it's kind of like, okay, you just have to make the leap. You know, I think that's one lesson I'm learning. And it's like, hey, if you don't just go all in, especially when you have the means to do so, you're almost doing yourself a disservice, right? Yeah. Because you need to be investing in the vision, the real goal. If the real goal is ownership, invest in that, especially if you have the means to do it. So I'm
Right.
going through that pivot right now. And yeah, it's been interesting, man. For sure.
I think that unfortunately people feel like decision making is almost get seen in a negative light because people are thinking about the things that they have to give up in order to do that, right? So I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I've had to make a pivot, or like you said earlier, like I feel like I'm giving up or something. Or Devontae was talking earlier. We were talking off camera, but he was just saying like, until I feel like I've exhausted every opportunity in one thing, I don't feel like I can move on to the next thing. Whereas though sometimes, a healthy pivot could be saying, knowing when to stop, right? Because you can get to the point where you're just kind of like hitting your head against a wall, or like, doing certain things where it doesn't really, it's not really, I guess you could say there's no return on the investment of what you got going on.
So have y'all seen that y'all need, or what have you all, with the stop of as steady income, have you all felt like you had to give up something, or did you all just really, really prepare on the back end, so that you didn't have to give up anything, you continue the lifestyle the way it was?
Well, I'll say me and him are two totally different spinners.
You heard it from
Yeah. I'll be spinning, bro. You know what I'm saying? So absolutely things had to change, bro. Got to eat at the crib a lot more. Can't them planned dinners. Nah, bro, you gotta go get groceries. You ever heard of groceries? You gotta go get groceries, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like all that change. Yeah. Because for me, I spend a lot of money on, just like you said, convenience. Like convenience is a big thing for me. So I'm spending on anything that I feel like inconvenient. Like I listen to this dude named Naval Ravikant all the time, and he said like create an hourly rate for yourself, right? And then anything under that hourly rate, outsource. So my hourly rate is $1,000. That's what I said. It's $1,000 an hour. So anything under $1,000, I outsource. That get expensive. And when you don't have a check coming in, now you gotta be like, damn, I gotta do that now. You know what I'm saying? We might chill on the cleaners. I gotta clean all this extra stuff. You know what I'm saying? All those extra fees, bro, because you start adding up, looking at them statements, you like, damn, I'm spending how much on this? I'm spending how much on this? So yeah, man, when you ownership, it's part of the sacrifice. Sure. But at the end of the day, it's the ultimate sacrifice is giving away your time. Oh, Jesus. It's the ultimate sacrifice, right? And this is the sickest part. The sickest part is when you building something, it takes time. Sure. And that's the part about the ownership part that I'm always advocating to like get into, is because regardless of whatever you building, I think we are too optimistic about like how fast things are gonna happen. Yep. And we don't realize like all this shit take time. You know what I'm saying? So it's better to just kind of get in the game as soon as you can. You know what I mean? It ain't gonna be perfect, but like if once your ducks are in a row, kinda, it's better just go and get in the game because it's already gonna be a long run. Anyway, time gonna go fast.
You overestimate what you can do in a day and underestimate what you can do in a year.
Come on, man. Like you might as well, like the time side, you gotta go ahead and just get in the game. So yeah, man, I mean, when it comes to the ownership and just making them sacrifices, anything that you're trying to do, your best bet is to just like, once you got the bases together, because I'm not saying like, and that's the thing about the ownership and just being a business owner, a lot of people take ridiculous risk. You know what I'm saying? Because the other part too is like, and they take a lot of ridiculous risk with their money. Like, especially in our community, I feel like it's some type of like thing to be able to say, now I put up this money for this situation. But the thing about it is it's generally going to take more money than you think as well. Sure. So now you've emptied your savings, right? Which is okay. That's a cool signal to the market. I put all my savings into this.
Well, you committed.
But not are you committed? That's not smart.
I know it's not smart, but I'm saying that's how someone's thinking about it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, if I had to go ask somebody, I'd be like, I'll put everything into it. Like, they might look at you like a small fish. Like, oh, that's all you had to put in? Whatever it is.
That's the poke at your own ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it might make you feel better. That's not smart. To put all of your own money, nobody else be doing that like that. You need to be taking out them loans, get them credit lines, like figure out a way to keep the nest. Yeah. But like amongst us, it's like a flex. Like, yo, I put up Okay.
Come on,
Man. Nah, like, no.
Ramen noodles.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And now, but some people want to fabricate this whole model of putting their back against the wall so they can hustle harder. You feel what I'm saying? But I'm saying that ain't the route. You feel me? Time is the asset. You want to go ahead and try to figure out a way to get in the game, right? Because we all got a time clock on that. But yeah, man, just stay focused and get in as soon as possible.
So like, I guess one quick thing as we finish up here is just like, when you have these tougher decisions to make, how do y'all go about it? Like, what's your process of doing so? Because like for us, it's like, okay, it's the difference between eating out, not eating out.
Yeah.
But for some people, it may be the difference between, taking a risk and taking that trajectory up because you have a lot of things to risk, or, kind of staying stagnant and maybe keeping it status quo. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you go in to yourself? Like for me, I'll tell you, like for me, typically I fast and meditate a lot. Like whenever I got a lot on my brain, I fast and meditate. Like that's the first thing I do. First thing to get into. But like, how do y'all go to the gym? Do y'all got mentors? Do y'all have like obviously talk to the homies, or like how do you talk to your parents? Like what's your outlets for that?
If it has nothing to do with other people, right? So if it's a situation like where other people will be affected, it's a whole different thought process. But when it's like solely Tyler Brown, I just kind of go really, really internal. It's like, what do I really want to do outside of public perception, outside of whatever it may be? Because there's that saying like at 20, you care about what people think. At 30, you don't care what people think anymore. And at 40, you realize nobody was thinking about you at all, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of just like, I've gone to a point now where it's like, what makes Tyler happy? Because that is going to be able to, I can be the best I can be after that.
Is that like a journal? Is that like just like a sit and reflect?
It's like a reminder, just a mindset. I'll read it. Will this make you happy? Mm-hmm. And that's it. You know what I mean? And it's like, is the sacrifice worth the happiness right now? Right. That's just how I go about it.
For me, I have two outlets, I guess you can say. Definitely like going to the gym, just kind of clear my mind. But secondly, one thing I like to do is these phones, man. I like to go back. I take a lot of random screenshots for different points or aspects of my life. So if it's like I'm going through something tough, don't forget, I prayed to be right here in these shoes. So let me rewind and go back. That's why I love taking plane rides. A lot of times I'm on the plane, I'm looking up old photos.
Is it like
and it can reflect. No, just a reflection, just regular photos app. Okay. So I reflect back on something. It's like, okay, whatever I thought I needed, I'm here now. I have it, and I really don't need. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, now let's recalibrate myself so I can get back on the straight and narrow. So those are my two ways.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm always looking at like, what would be the hardest part, like the hardest shit for me. And when I say hard, not like physically hard, but just would be like, what would be the dopest thing to do right now? You know what I mean? Because I'm always looking at like, when I want to look back at my life, I want to look at those moments where I'm like, bro, we did that, or I did that, or I pulled off that. So I'm always thinking about like, damn, if it's the decision between one or two, which one would make for the best story? If I pulled that off, what would be just hard? And it's all about what's hard to me though. You feel me? And every now and then, what's hard to me, the whole world agrees on. But even if it's just for me, it's certain things that I just need for me. And I'm just like, damn, this would be hard if I do this. And I just think that just living a life on your own terms is what everybody needs to kind of aspire to do. It's just like, look, you ain't gotta, as long as it makes sense to you. Yep. And that's in everything. If it makes sense to you, I think it's feasible enough.
That'll work. So I say in closing, I guess one thing we can kind of harp on and say, let's always be grateful for where we at, but hungry for where we're going.
Yes, sir.
Another episode, Never Seen It Podcast, DL Stevens, Tyler Brown, Terrell Friday, Devontae Johnson. See y'all next time.
Never seen it, baby.